Anand V Bhat, Chairman and Managing Director, BNB. Warm welcome to Integrated Data Center 2026 podcast.
Thank you, Sam. It's my privilege to be part of this.
Thank you for supporting. You are the Chairman and Managing Director of BNB. Now I've heard B2B. What is this BNB? Where did this come from?
Good question, Sam. We speak about B2B. It's business to business. I always thought that it's one way. It's a single direction. And when we were registering this company, what came to my mind is it has to be mutual. So therefore, we registered as business and business. That is B and B. We support our customers with their critical infrastructure like security, life safety, and in turn, we also get benefited from the customer. So that all that support we get from the customer. Therefore, I thought it's appropriate to have business and business, that is B and B.
Fancy, and you've created a fabulous ecosystem. So why did you decide to support this event, Integrated Data Center Conclave 2026, which is being held in Mumbai on 5th of June, and it's being fittingly held here because this is the fintech capital, this is the cultural and data center capital of India. So warm welcome to Mumbai, Anand. And why did you support it?
When the organizers first approached me, I was quite excited, because the data center is a buzz now. That's a buzzword everywhere.
And you've seen it right from early, small mini data centers, captive, racks, servers, and you've seen the whole journey.
Absolutely. I can relate to my experience. We started in 1988. And to be specific, I think 93, 94, and I got involved in the, software companies where, we used to install security and then life safety systems. I used to see a small server room wherein, an entry is controlled with an access control system. Just imagine, those days we used to have max type readers, very easy to clone, very easy to duplicate. But still, the security was there. And then it could be separation system, within the server room, which used to be Halon those days. And then Halon is banned now. We have reached a long way now. And starting from such micro, you can say data center. And I've seen a single floor data centers. And then, in fact, I've been part of, such ecosystem. And then now we look at hyperscales, and from where to where, it's a huge transformation, and it's very, very exciting.
And it's just starting, I think.
Absolutely.
It just started. You showed me a report just before this. We are at 1.5. We are touching a gigawatt, and probably we could grow 4 times, 5 times in
absolutely,
next 5 years.
Absolutely. Recently, I was going through a survey by a very prominent agency. They're saying that by 2030, we should grow by 4 times. So that is the level of the requirement which is coming in terms of the data center usage.
And globally, we are at 100 gigs, probably 100 gigawatts now, and in 2026, and probably we'll be at 200 gigawatts. So we are in the infra super cycle now.
Absolutely, a lot of announcements we hear every day, and then big companies are investing in hyperscale. We speak of Vizag, we speak of Mumbai, Hyderabad, Chennai, Bangalore. Therefore, the way ahead is very exciting, for all of us, being in this ecosystem and then and trying to build more and more. And the quantum computing coming, I think it's unimaginable that, the data center is heading, forward.
So Mumbai, we are already inching closer to 1 gigawatt, and then in India, we are at probably 1.6, 1.7. We will grow 4x in next 4-5 years. So some massive investments likely in this space. We are seeing in Vizag, you heard big announcements coming in Jamnagar, Adani Connects, Google, Reliance, a whole lot of big players are coming into this space.
Absolutely, Sam. We have seen not only the international investors coming here, but also the local investors showing interest, in the development of the infrastructure, and that, of course, is helping our economy. And as you rightly said, it is not only in a like Mumbai or Hyderabad pocket which is going to develop. I think, in my opinion, this is going to be expanding to tier two, tier three cities as well. Because looking at the latency and to avoid the latency, I think data centers will move near to the users in future.
Probably edge computing. Edge will become the new core.
Absolutely. And we are seeing that micro data centers are coming. We're seeing that the hyperscales are so coming. It could be data centers, which are moving to tier two, tier three cities, or even including the smaller towns. But looking at this, the way the growth is happening in terms of the AI and ML, where data is huge, and we are also speaking of blockchain, where data has to be kept for a longer duration. That means the demand is huge. With this demand, I think the next 5 or 10 years, I foresee huge growth potential within India.
So you are a key player in the infrastructure security and DC security space. So how important is security to a data center?
Sam, security is very critical for anything. Just imagine if we are sending our children to a school, if the security is not there in the school, we would not.
Absolutely.
That's a basic thing.
And hotels with
And
better
hotels,
security.
where we go and stay, first we see that how
I
secure.
don't want to travel through Dubai. now.
Absolutely. So we are, everyone is concerned about security always. And when it comes for data center, the data center is the brain, where the entire data is stored, whether it's government, private, banking, you name anything, and the cloud.
Yeah, I think it is the business of trust.
Absolutely, that trust, that the trust has to come, and when the trust comes, you feel secure. When you feel secure, yes, natural. So therefore, the data center, should have the highest security.
So just talk us through. People talk about 3 layers, 4 layers, 5 layers, 7 layers of security. How do you kind of go about designing it? Just in a layman terms.
Having seen this growth in the data center aspect, evolving from a small server room to the hyperscale, data center security starts, I think, from beyond perimeter. Sam, you are in the business of providing the intelligence to a lot of customers and the global customers as well, and you know better that it has to start from beyond the perimeter. One is not only the intelligence part of it. I think government also should ensure that the security to the entire data center and outside the data center.
The data centers come in packs.
Absolutely, the clusters of data centers.
Megacities which come in.
Absolutely. So that security starts from there. That means beyond the perimeter.
Beyond the perimeter. Let's come to the perimeter.
Absolutely. When it comes to the perimeter, okay, you may build a huge wall and provide the protection and all those things. Outside the perimeter and inside the perimeters are both are equal. So therefore, when it comes for the physical data center, the layer starts from just outside the perimeter. That means any movement happening, anyone trying to sabotage, surveillance basically.
Then identity access.
Yeah, absolutely, so that the controlled access, only who is authorized has to enter inside. Then we come to the building security and building entrance security. And then it goes up to the rack level security. Cyber security I'm not speaking about, because that itself is the huge.
And then there are environmental concerns.
Absolutely.
There are social concerns. People are getting restless.
We have seen that happening. Globally.
Can we talk a little bit about threats, because security is. So what kind of major threats do you see to the whole DC ecosystem, both in cyber, physical, environmental, social, all spaces?
See, anyway, I'm not going to speak about the cyber security, because cyber security itself is a huge subject. The physical security, if we are speaking about, when I mentioned about outside the perimeter, we have seen that environmental concerns are always there with the citizens, and then we have seen that a lot of demonstrations happening against the data center in other places as well.
People are talking about rising electricity bills, pollution, quality of life deteriorating, costs going up.
Absolutely. So that's one thing, Then one more thing which we have not seen, it would come up in future, is like everyone is thinking that the AI and ML is taking away their jobs, and then we know that the data center is the crown jewel, heart of the AI. There could be demonstrations.
The first time we have seen this. Sometimes people at graduation ceremonies, commencement speeches, and all being booed when they're like promoting AI and data centers.
Absolutely. People always think that if you remember, when computers came to India, everyone thought that computer will take away their jobs, and then people were against computer. But of course, we have seen the changes, and then computers helped us. And in the same way, I think AI is also going to help India. I'm not speaking about everyone here. I'm only representing India. So I think it's going to help India.
So what's your take on the jobs? AI versus jobs, data centers versus jobs. Data centers will create a lot of jobs in India.
Absolutely.
You're creating jobs.
It started creating the jobs. In fact, if you look at Gen Z or Gen Alpha, whatever you call, spending so much of time on learning on AI, it's only like we have to build, the talents accordingly. And then what we have done in our organization is, we have built a lab. Of course, it's called BNB Innovation Lab. And then we also have a software company, which is BNB Cognira.
So you're looking at physical, you're also looking at digital, you're
absolutely
looking at the future with lab and R&D. You're
absolutely
also looking at the social aspects, the kind of, I would say, civic responsibility aspects with a foundation.
I always believe in social entrepreneurship. What we have done is we have built about 30 seats extra, where every year we would like to take the graduates and then train them. And then if we can absorb them, yes, they will continue with us. Otherwise, they can always take up the job outside. And in this case, we are going to choose the right kind of, the deserving, graduates, who take up who need the right kind of training. That's what we are thinking at. And then I think many other organizations are also looking at developing such human resources. And then with this and with the available opportunity globally, because now the borders have gone, when it is digital, you can sit anywhere and then do any work from in a remote location. Also, only thing is what we need to have is the connectivity. That connectivity, I think, since the government laid the fiber across the country, and now I think that's coming for the right kind of
research. I have a lot of questions to ask you, and before we go into your entrepreneurial journey, I think every successful business leader is a product of their upbringing. So I just want to take you to your early childhood and just tell me your early days of when were you born in a very rich family and went to Ivy League or something. So just tell me, how did you kind of get here? And I'll take from, we'll break it into chunks. We'll take the probably early years and then maybe school, college, and then your corporate journey and then entrepreneurial journey. So go on.
Sam, when I go back to my upbringing, I become quite emotional. And
it's okay, because you have reason to be proud of what you have achieved.
In fact, I was born in a very humble family. My father was a farmer. We had agricultural land. Not a huge chunk of land. It's a very small parcel of land. And then I studied in a government school and up to 7th standard.
So you can study in a government school and reach where you are.
Absolutely, there is no limit. The opportunities are equal to everyone, whether you are in Ivy League or you are in a government school.
So in this country, if you are willing to work hard, you can get to where you are.
Absolutely, that's a kind of discipline we need to have.
You can dream and you can dare and you can reach.
Yes. Then of course, I studied up to 10th standard in year 9.
So how did you how was the school like? It was a fancy school, and how did you go there?
It was a very, very basic, government school. In fact, we were not even having a playground. You won't believe, Sam. But only thing is, it was...
And you wore your Nike sneakers and went there.
Yeah, of course, those days, it was very difficult to have, multiple pairs of dresses, then, with whatever available resources, then
so
we had to...
walk barefoot to your school,
yeah, absolutely.
Kilometers.
Absolutely. So I used to go to my high school, which was 3 kilometers from my home. And every day, walking up and down, without chapel. In fact, almost
slippers,
without slippers, without footwear.
Wow.
And of course, used to play cricket, volleyball, kabaddi, everything were absolutely no shoes. And up to
so does that toughness, that resilience, does that help going forward in life?
See, that creates the toughness in us, then because when we are from the very humble background and then face all these challenges and then grow up, and I think, that creates that kind of courage in us to face any kind of situation.
So when something like COVID hits, like you can take a setback and you can rebound?
Absolutely. When the lockdown started on 23rd of March 2020, In fact, for me, it was a shock. As a businessman, we had almost 140 employees, and then it was worrying.
I
But
mean,
I think that was
2-3 months, no revenues,
3 months. It was zero, absolutely. And
and the whole year you're going to a loss.
no,
Wow.
Sam, we did a 7% growth in that year.
Wow.
No one would believe it, and it's all because of that resilience shown by our own team. And then, even though first 3 months
And
was
then
a
every
zero.
year you grow through the
Yeah,
COVID.
absolutely. The remaining 3 quarters, we ensure that a 7% growth
Well,
happened.
let's go back to your story. Let's
Yeah.
go back because it's very inspiring.
So-
So you go to school barefoot, study in a government school, go through, and then college you took science.
I took science because I wanted to do something. Of course, my parents, because from the farming background, they were not able to advise me anything, what I need to do.
Your story is bringing tears to my eyes.
Oh,
Very inspiring.
sorry, Sam.
Yeah.
I did my 12th up to 12th in the local college, which is a place called Honavar in Karnataka, and I finished my 12th, and then because of the merit, I could get into the engineering college. Then I joined engineering college, which is BVB College of Engineering and Technology in Hubli.
Oh wow, that's a pretty well-known college. From I think you have got some. You have had a chief minister. I think Sudha Murthy is from there.
Yes.
Oh my!
Yes,
I can
Sam.
see some ministers in your current cabinet.
Yes, Sam.
In fact, I saw your old picture of yours with the current chief minister.
Yeah, that is true, Sam. Then I was privileged to be part of the college, which produced the great people like Sudha Murthy, and then the earlier Chief Minister of Karnataka, Basavaraj Bommai.
So now the playing field is being leveled once you reach a good engineering college, and
Yeah, once you reach to engineering college, like that means education wise, yes, But ultimately, I think what proves right is the kind of the discipline, what we build within ourselves, and the
then
courage,
Then you
confidence.
start with a fat salary, or you started.
Yeah, good question. I
So what
passed
was
out
the
in-
salary, if I can ask you? It was how many dollars?
I passed out in.
$1,000 or more like $20 or
I
something.
passed out in 1988. In fact, I came to Bangalore. I came.
That's
to,
still pre-liberalization era.
Absolutely.
The young generation
And
won't
the-
understand the license permit.
Correct. The
Raj.
opportunity was not much.
Yeah.
And I came to Bangalore without a return ticket.
And Bangalore those days was very different from the Bangalore of now.
Yeah, beautiful Bangalore. The climate. The overall. It used to be called as a pensioners' garden, and then a garden city, and pensioners' paradise.
But very few job opportunities.
Very few job opportunities. There were, the public sectors, but getting into public sectors, how difficult it used to be, and now also it is difficult. So I came to Bangalore and then joined in a firm. It is Motwane Private Limited, where in the the communication and I can say now currently what we do in ELV partially that business, and then. I joined them. My first salary was in terms of dollar, if you speak about, it is
Less than 20?
$15 now.
$15.
Current,
Wow.
it was 1,500
That's
rupees.
like minimum wages for an hour in the US now.
Yeah, but those days, 1,500 rupees was quite good to as a bachelor to survive in Bangalore, and that's how I started my career.
And then you went on to, then you also traveled overseas, I'm told, 10 years you spent in the Middle East. And does that kind of teach you? What did you do? What did you learn?
Yeah, during the my stint in Bangalore, of course, first 4 years I was in R&D, and then next 6 years, I was with a company called Group 4. Now currently it's called G4S. And in '99, I got an opportunity to go to Oman, to take up the national assignment, as head of operations, for the country.
Just go back. I mean, Group 4, you were like the first employee, literally the first employee building tech for them in South India, which is now really the tech capital of
Absolutely.
India or Asia.
I was the first employee for the systems to join for Group 4, and that was in 1993 beginning.
Then once you do well, you kind of are selected and
correct.
prestigious overseas assignment. I know how it
Absolutely,
feels.
And during the stint with Group 4, I learned a lot. In fact, that's the time the security systems in India, started expanding. I had the privilege of installing the first access control and CCTV for a very prestigious company like Infosys.
I mean, the legends of Indian industry.
Absolutely, it was the first building, which is I think called Heritage
So
Building
many
now.
first to the credit in technology.
Absolutely, and then Wipro and other companies like Motorola and Oracle,
And
in
one of
Bangalore.
the early guys selected to lead a set up business in the Middle East.
Absolutely. So then I moved to Middle East in 1999, and then 5 years I was in Oman, and then working all along. I've been in the security and life safety, automation solutions. I'm the provider of that. So similar way I maintained, and I worked in Oman for 5 years. I built the business there, and then I moved to Dubai for 3 years. I was in yes, I've seen Dubai transforming. When I went there first, there was no Burj Khalifa. In fact, if you look at the growth of Dubai, and I see after that, there's so much of growth which has happened, and very fascinating. In fact, I can say that Dubai is my second home. I still visit 4 or 5 times in a year, and then I do have a residential visa in Dubai now currently.
So you have you learnt a lot. I think every overseas things. Talk me through some of your learnings, maybe quality, dignity of labor, whatever you learned. Because every global travel teaches you a lot.
Yeah, I think moving from India to outside India, that to Gulf countries. I think I did because when we go out of India only we understand, and we can compare and then find out the difference. The foremost thing is the best practices.
So best practices are like best practices.
Best practices are like best practices.
The obsession for quality.
Absolutely. And the quality, the workmanship, the specifications, and the delivery, everything is so defined.
And just jumping on, your daughter worked in Korea for probably a very reputed global company, and again she would bring probably the best practices when she joins the family business.
Absolutely, my daughter is an MBA from MIT Sloan.
Wow, she could have got a job probably anywhere else.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
congratulations.
Thank you so much. It's actually, as a proud father, always wanted my daughter to be working in my organization. In fact, after 2 years stint in South Korea in Samsung as global strategist, and then she decided that she will join me. And then she quit the job, and now past 6 months she has been
That's
working
a trend
with me.
that I'm seeing. We had this founder of Spurs CCTV. The children are doing very well, both from my college, two young girls, both from King's College London, and the elder one doing very well, and also joined family business. So I see that increasing trend. I think they're also believing in the India story.
That's right, Sam. Recently I met Spurs in one of the events in Colombo. So I see a bright young girl there, and then similarly, my daughter, when she wanted to come back and take up the role, I was very happy, and I still she has to go a long way, of course, in our industry. She's just 6 months old now, and then but the goodwill what we have built in the market, and the quality benchmark what we have set. I think it's going to take us and the best practices what we
So the quality
inculcated, yes.
obsession, I think that has stuck with you in your overseas.
Yeah, absolutely.
And other things like
Absolutely.
dignity of labor and just exposure.
I
to
always
other
believe
cultures.
in training. Sam, you won't believe we have more than 250 collective certifications within our organization. I don't think any other organization has, particularly, in our industry, that's a kind of certifications. That's how we impart the knowledge to our own team, because you may get the talented people, but until and unless you train them, I don't think they are going to perform to your requirements.
So you did very well in Middle East, and then you come back to India. You come back to Bangalore. Now it's a different city 10 years down the line.
Yeah, Sam. When I came back to Bangalore in 2009. When I left in '99.
And that's
10
just
years
post-Lehman time.
Yeah, that's Bangalore. Had completely transformed, and it was not easy for me to even contact my old friends. Because when I left India,
So you are at ground zero now.
Yeah, I was
your space again.
I was at ground zero. And then looking for some support, because
So you are in, just correct me. You are in a post-Lehman era, back to Bangalore, 10 years down the line, which is a completely different city, and you are rebuilding your life all over again.
Just imagine, Sam, when I quit this job, my boss asked me, where are you going? I said, I'm going back to Bangalore. He says, this is not the right time, to leave a job because, 2007, 8, we had the recession. And then going back to Bangalore, of course, I did not tell him that I'm going to start any business. He thought that I would join any other company in Bangalore. So that was a difficult time. Even to start the business, it was a difficult time because budgets were tight, really tight, for all the companies. But somehow, back of my mind, always, I dreamt that, I should start some business and employ at least 100 people.
So your dream was to get to 100, to create 100 new jobs.
Absolutely.
Have you reached there or probably exceeded it 10 times over?
Sam, it's God's grace. We started, and then, as I said, before the COVID itself, we had 140. And today we have more than 400 employees, on
Plus
our
indirect, if you add indirect, it's closer to 1,000.
Yeah, if we add indirect, it will be around 900, 900
Next,
plus.
and by the end of the decade, probably 10,000.
Hope so. Yeah. That's a kind of dream, of course, is there. But now we not only have a single company.
And these are high quality skilled jobs we're talking about.
Absolutely. We're not.
They're top of the line jobs, not
Absolutely.
the base level.
Absolutely. Nowadays, the talent, it's not easy to get, and then it's to retain them also. So therefore, as I earlier said, collectively we have more than 250 certifications. That itself means.
And you will continue to be a factory for talent for BNB,
Yes.
for Bangalore, for rest of India, probably rest of Asia and the wider world.
I believe in myself as socio-entrepreneur. I'm not a shrewd businessman, I think. That's what, a lot of my friends say. And therefore, I want to train as many as possible. If this can create a better job for an individual and a better talent pool, I'm absolutely fine.
So Anand, your job, your transformation from a village boy, going through all the hardships to becoming an engineer, traveling across the world, your obsession for quality, your transformation into a social entrepreneur. Your story is very, very inspiring. Can you just tell me probably top 2-3 learnings from your entrepreneurial journey and any advice for the young entrepreneurs of today?
Sam, I also mentor some of the organizations, but without any commercial expectations from their side, because I don't believe in taking some commercial advantage. But one thing is for sure, every entrepreneur should have a mentor. Like how the sports person has got a coach, and he listens to the coach 100%. It cannot be 99% because he makes one mistake and is gone. Similar way, it's business. I might be a technocrat, where I know everything, as far as the technology is considered, and what the product, what I'm going to bring. But I may not have enough knowledge commercial. It's not possible to have, everything within one person. Therefore, you always require an advisor and a mentor.
So you get a mentor, and if you don't have skill sets, you bring in other mentors as well.
Yeah, you can have multiple mentors. Of course, a single mentor is not able to.
And your any advice for mentors? Mentors also need some advice because they are being mentors first time in their life.
India, we have Guru Shishya Parampara.
Okay.
And if you go back to the early days, a guru always, wanted his Shishya to be better than him. And we have seen that many gurus have even not come to the limelight. We know great Sachin Tendulkar, and his mentor or his coach, he never came to limelight.
And now we are in the Vaibhav Suryavanshi era.
Yeah, absolutely.
From my hometown.
Absolutely. Now there's a transformation which has happened in game of cricket. And sometimes we don't know who is the guru. Therefore, every guru would always like to not go to the limelight, help his Shishya, ensuring that, his Shishya performs better than him. I think that's what, the mentor should always keep in mind, that they should not tell their mentee that they should go, in their path only, and then they should copy them. They should not be a replica of their guru. Let that talent come out.
So it's not like the old musical thing that you follow this, become like me.
Yeah, absolutely. So we should allow them to.
So your mentee should become better than you.
Yes.
I mean, world is your play field. Go out there and
Correct.
capture it.
Correct. I think that's what the mentor has to follow. In my case, if I'm mentoring someone, I support him up to a certain extent, and then I leave. I want them to run on their own. So after some time, because otherwise, they will not be learning much. So initial stage, yes, hand holding is required.
It has been an absolute pleasure speaking with you, Anand. Any questions that you have for me?
Sam, you are a global trotter. And I don't know how do you manage your time, and traveling all over the world, and then participating in so many events, and the event like this. And I don't know how do you do that, Sam?
So I think you answered that question in your, it's about discipline. So you have to just be disciplined about your routine, So irrespective of where I'm traveling, my 15-20,000 steps every day, you be disciplined on food, and then just kind of, and you have to love what you do. So I think rest takes care of itself.
It's very interesting. In fact, I would like to spend more and more time with you to understand, like your management of, the time. And not only that, Sam, you are also like entrepreneur like me. And then both of us started almost same time. I know you are 1 year ahead of me in everything. And then a little bit about your journey, Sam.
No, I think my journey pretty much mirrors yours. I mean, except that I did, when you were like going through your learnings in India and Gulf, I went to armed forces and I did 2 decades there. Lots of learning. Armed forces set you up for success. So, whether it is leadership, followership, your planning process, your obsession for quality, execution being everything, teamwork, you can transform all your army's learnings into corporate world. And then pretty much, I think 1 year ahead of you, you started in 2011, I started in 2010, and then we went to Singapore in 2015, you went in 2016. I mean, we've gone to London and USA probably. I'm sure you're getting there soon. So good luck. I think you're there and you're doing very well. We're very proud of you. And thank you
Thank you
for your support to the Integrated Data Center Conclave 2026. There is another event they do, ICE 2027, that will be held in January in this iconic city of Mumbai, and I'm sure you will be involved with that.
It will be my pleasure, Sam. And I always believe data center is the crown jewel of any economy. So therefore, participating in such events, it's not only data center, but also anything to do with the security and life safety, because very close to my heart for the last 38 years, and I'm always available.
And as you brought out rightly, trust sits at the core of data center business, and at the heart of that building and retaining that trust lies security. So thank you very much. It has been an absolute pleasure speaking with you, Mr. Anand Bhat, Chairman and Managing Director, BNB.
Thank you so much, Sam. It was my pleasure, interacting. And then thank you for all those great questions. And then I was a bit emotional, when I was answering about my past. But I think that has given me the strength. And then once again, thank you so much. And then I wish you also great success in your entrepreneurship.
Thank you so much. Thanks.